So thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to be part of this, and also Tanvi, very good, and I liked your presentation. So, and in a way, I mean, that has also helped me to bring up some of the issues related to what broadly we call as the participatory methods of knowledge production, in which I've said that, whether it is citizen science or activist research, or nowadays we talk about co-production of knowledge. I should also say that the location from which I am speaking, like Daniel said, I'm primarily an activist researcher. Very often the activist gets the better of me than the researcher. So probably I can get away with some of the statements which will make, because I'm not a formal full-time academic as such, or neither am I trained in many of the academic formal research methods and things. But I do some research as collectively as a group. I can also see a few of my colleagues and co-travelers in the waterscape of India with me, so they are also as much part of what I'm going to say here. Can you shift to next one? Yeah, so basically what I'm going to say in terms of activist research or citizen science or co-production, or the various participatory methods of research or knowledge production, is in the broader context of rivers as space of contestations, conflicts. This does not mean that there are no examples and experience of cooperation. There are also cooperation things, but today it's gone out. Yeah. So basically, it is in the context of the conflicts and contestations which are taking place all over the country. And one types of conflicts is which Tanvi mentioned is about the interstate conflict, about the interstate rivers in India we have. She talked about the Kaveri conflict. Now that is only one type of conflicts or contestates we find. There are different types at different scales at which the conflicts are taking place, right into within communities and between communities and things, or riverine communities, which you find, because there are class, caste, gender, ethnicity, different forms of minorities all play out in these type of conflicts and things. Next one. So, and the special focus here is basically contestations over knowledge. I think that is what I want to little more focus about. Many of these conflicts also, one of the underlying reasons is that the different conflicting parties or the stakeholders do come with different worldviews, different epistemologies, different imaginations around rivers and things. So there is a conflict of knowledge there. And the issue is that which knowledge is privileged, who gets the legitimacy, whatever knowledge gets legitimacy, because legitimacy is important, because the type of knowledge that flows into policy formulations, interventions, programs are also very important. So there are certain types of knowledge which gets privileged in the country and things. So here I want to, next one, I want to give, just click once again. Yeah. So this is I get to illustrate with an example of a disaster which took place in Kerala, one of the southernmost states in India, around floods which took place in 2018. So one of the very devastating floods, nearly about 500 people died, and about 5.5 million people got impacted, and most of that were shifted out of these things. Now the issue which is the conflict, was around the role of dams and reservoirs in terms of either causing floods, exacerbating floods, or even regulating floods. So we could clearly see two types of knowledges and two types of institutions taking such positions. One was the Central Water Commission, which is supposed to be the mainstream institution of the country in terms of surface water things, and they produce the knowledge, they make the schemes and everything. They came out with a report saying that dams did not have anything to do with the floods. In fact, the report suggests that we should go for more and more dams so that they can regulate as flood absorbing systems and things. Against that, we also find a set of environmental activists and academics taking a position that dams in Kerala, in the river, different rivers in the Kerala did play a role in exacerbating conflicts. The floods there in the 2018 case, and reservoir operations. If it has been done differently, then probably the impact has been much reduced. So you find saying that how knowledge is mobilized to understand and also to narrate the same event or the same phenomenon very differently and things. In fact, we have also written about it. I can share a paper based on that. Next one. So I would like to contextualize the presentation about activist research and citizen science and other type of participant methods, where this entire people science movement which took place in the country right from the 70s and 80s. We find that people science movements and organizations coming up in different parts of the country. Um, and they also did two things. One was, it was like a one-way traffic of experts and scientists taking knowledge as a ready-made product to the people. And second was trying to develop a scientific temper among the people, because they thought that if they are to participate in developmental processes in a more informed manner, this is an important thing. Next one. So um, we find one of the interesting things which I was also, I'm going to give you, just mention two examples. One is the Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. The broad translation is Kerala Science Literacy Council, which was a body of scientists, technologists, teachers, and political activists together as one thing, which came up in the 1970s. And they took up the issue of a large hydropower project which was coming up in Kerala in the Western Ghats, which is one of the very biodiversity hotspots and things. And because of the scientific evidence they could produce, the first time in the history of India, they could cancel a dam. In fact, when this evidence was presented to the then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, she took a very principled stand and saying that this dam will not go. And I would say that this is one of the first cases where a knowledge which is produced through the interaction of the local communities, different people there, different scientists, everybody coming together, and on the basis of a scientific evidence created, a particular dam was cancelled. The second example, yeah, Daniel, just click again. Yeah. So the other example I talk about is the state which I come from, that is Maharashtra. In fact, actually, I'm originally from Kerala, so I'm also associated with the things happening there. I speak the language, and also I live and work in Maharashtra. So there was this Maharashtra people science movement here, which aligned with some of the popular mass movements and people's organizations who are fighting against droughts and other things or water issues, and we could produce different alternatives and things. Yeah, next slide. So when I talked about active research, it's a knowledge production by activists and social movements to support their demands, the type of political demands they make on the state. So they wanted to also create an empirical evidence for that thing. So they also do collect data, analyze and things, and also to develop alternatives. To put it differently, or to use a Gramscian term, it is to develop or to come up with counter hegemonies to the state by the people themselves. So this is the where the research is located in terms of how do you create an evidence for the type of demands and the alternatives you produce and things. Next. So here I wanted to, because Mukti Sangharsh movement is a mass movement in South Maharashtra, where I was a full-time activist there. In fact, there are many examples where we have used the type of activist research there to sharpen the political demands and things. And one just case I want to say is about a commercial sand excavation from one of the very small river systems they call the Erala. In fact, through the people's experience itself, because of the type of large-scale sand excavation for there, some of the ecological impacts of that became visible. And one of the visible things was the impact on the groundwater, the wells in and around the both the banks of things. So the Mukti Sangharsh movement did a huge walkthrough the thing with hundreds of people from the neighboring villages who are living in the on the both the banks of the river, and collected data about the amount of sand being excavated, how it is being done, what are the type of impact which is being showing up, what is happening to the groundwater levels, other ecological impacts which they see, their livelihoods, etc., etc. From there, we made a prima facie case and took it to the district collector or district authority, saying that commercial sand excavation should be banned. This, and there were many agitations were organized to support this demand to this. And as a result of that, the district authorities appointed a technical committee in which the activists were also members, and they did a 1 year empirical work in terms of what is the type of amount of sand replenishment which takes place. And finally, the committee came up there saying that what the Mukti Sangharsh movement was saying is true, and that forced the district authorities to ban commercial sand excavation. Only the local people were allowed to take sand in a particular manner. So this is where I say that activist research or participatory mode of research can lead to transformative changes in this. There are many other examples. I don't think we have the time to go into it. Next one. Yeah, I mean, this is just a picture of that. And there was an article which was written in Economic and Political Weekly about that. And from this whole struggle, the people came with a small structure on the river called the Biliraja Dam, which also became a symbol of equitable water distribution in that small river basin. Next one. Yeah. So the next example which I have to talk in very briefly is in another river from Kerala called the Chalakudy River. Is one of the very small river, and there has been a conflict. Just can click once again, you will see a nice picture. So this is one of the very lovely rivers. I also come from this river basin, and the conflict. I mean, this is what you see is a very beautiful waterfall there, and those who have not visited should visit this in the monsoon season to see this beautiful site. So the conflict was about upstream and downstream. The next slide. So this is a schematic diagram of the river stretch from the beginning to about 90 kilometers. You can find that it's one of the heavily regulated systems. There are many hydropower projects in the upstream. There are diversion projects to interstate transfers of water taking place from Kerala to the neighboring state called Tamil Nadu. And at the end of the system, you can see there's a river diversion project, which is primarily irrigation project. The conflict was that the way the hydropower projects are being operated was not allowing too much of water going downstream, which is impacting the agricultural water needs as well as the domestic water needs of the people. Next one. So here then we did with the stakeholder interactions and other type of data collection, and also using official data in terms of the type of rainfall, the type of fillings of the dams, the type of outflows, and the present pattern of power generation there. The group there came up with an alternative reservoir operation model. In fact, in the first two slides, we can see that we are holding different type of meetings there to discuss this issue with this and taking those insights among the people to come up with this alternative reservoir operation model there, which can synchronize to some extent the upstream, downstream needs and things. And then also it came out with a very interesting report called Linking Lives and Reviving Flows, which in a way try to optimize the river flows, this and also which led to better environmental flows and things. Now, the interesting thing is that we did not stop there. This is the research part of things on knowledge production. And my contention or proposition is that knowledge in itself may not lead to transformative changes. The group there took this issue to the different local self-governments. They passed resolutions saying that this type of reservoir operation model should be mandated. It took to the local elected members, and they took the issue to the Chief Minister of Kerala, and who ordered that the Kerala State Electricity Board, who is supposed to operate this reservation, should change their operations. And that year, at least in the drought, and supposed to be a drought year, it grew to, gave a better flows downstream, trying to see. So the point I'm making is that this type of research, if you have to be, the strength of this research is that mobilize politically, and unless this politics and or mobilization and research go together, probably our research results or what we produce as knowledge may not lead to transformative changes. Yeah, next one. Now, the last experience is something which is not exactly in terms of activist or citizens research science, which we talk about. Is more of a little more formal research which we are involved in. It's called soft systems analysis, streamlining participatory approaches and agent-based models to explore ideas of fairness at the food, water, biodiversity nexus. It's called FairStream. There are three institutions which are part of it. One is from Austria, that is International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. SOPECOM is part of it, and another Pune-based organization. So two are much more formal research organizations, and SOPECOM is more of a civil society organization. Next. So this is the basin. This is called the Upper Bhima Basin, which you're talking about. It's a pretty large basin, which we talk about is part of the much larger system called the Krishna Basin. And the area which we talk about is something like about close to or little less than 500,000 square kilometers. Is a pretty large system which supports something like about 11 million people. So this is the basin which we were talking about. Next. Yeah. So it had two objectives, main research objectives. One is to develop and demonstrate a co-production methodology and test it out in the Upper Bhima Bay. So one of the main important things was to come up with a methodology for participatory or co-production methodology or research method. Second is that from this, develop some type of sustainable policy options across food, water, biodiversity nexus. Uh, Basically, we call scenario building and things. So, yeah, next one. So it is visualized or designed as a 5 stage, 5 steps in that. One is the preparatory work in which we had initial contacts with the basin communities and other things. And the second was in terms of problem framing. And this is what something which I want to emphasize, that many of the, science policy type of interactions or stakeholder interaction type of methods or co-production methods, very often we find that the research community or the researchers themselves frame the issues. And other things that we only do some consultation type of thing with the different stakeholders. But here, I think the different point was that right from the problem framing, we got the stakeholders very seriously into that. I'll come to that part. Then there is this identification of solutions, action planning, and finally a reflection evaluation. At the moment, we are this is an ongoing research. It's not a completed one. We are on the stage step 3, which we are doing. Yeah, next one. Now, we did expert interviews in terms of the preparatory work or the framing type of thing, people who knew little more about water, food, and biodiversity, because we are trying to look at the interrelationship between the 3 of them. So we had a series of expert interviews to get an idea about what type of issues are there. Next. Then we had, yeah, just click once again. We had different field interaction with the different stakeholders. This is a large meeting which had the women from that particular area, trying to discuss what are the type of issues which they find important in their lives and try to capture their insights about that. Next one. And then we had a large stakeholder meeting in Pune, which were organized. And there we can see from the pictures that it was done very differently. In fact, we will say that we tried to, wait, just go back again. Yeah. Yeah, that's a picture I want. So basically, we used the map of the basin itself, and with the different colors and symbols, we asked the people who came, divided into different groups, and tried to map the different resources, water resources, biodiversity, socioeconomic, technology and infrastructure developments of the thing, and the type of pressures and drivers. This was one set of exercise we did. And the second part, we tried to develop a participatory manner, a causal loop diagram, which shows through arrows and other type of showing the interrelationship, either it's a positive relationship or a negative relationship and things coming out from the group itself. And then you can take to the next slide. Then this helps the research team to frame what is the critical issues there. I'm just giving you 3 issues there just to show as a representative sample, something to the livelihood security and human-wild conflict, and what are the type of underlying issues which are there, which is mentioned there. There is a second set of issues which people came up with, the livelihood security and the fishing practices, especially in the context of the large barrages and dams which have come up, and the whole rights of the traditional fishers there vis-a-vis the commercial fishing, the way it is being done, and the lack of regulatory mechanisms, etc., etc. So there are a whole lot of issues which came up, which we could divide into some of the normative goals in type of whether it is sustainability, whether it's sustainability, equity, fairness, etc., etc. So this is the actually from the interaction from the stakeholders, we could frame some of the issues which led to then framing the research questions. Next slide. So this also, again, just 4 or 5 questions I said from this. Then we came with some of the research questions, which is guiding our research there now. What possibilities exist for diverse livelihood opportunities? Given the present water use scenarios, including e-flows in the basin, how much water would be available for agriculture-based livelihoods over time? Then given business as usual, what would be the impact on food, water in the next 20-30 years? And what could be the alternative scenarios taking into account sustainability, equity, and fairness? And also, what will be the relationship between food, water, and biodiversity? Is it one of trade-offs, or is it one of synergies, or it is something in between? So there are quite a bit of questions. There are also very localized questions about livelihoods there, which the people came up and things. There are about 6 or 7 such research questions we formulated. Now, at the moment, we are into this. So it is a combination of basically participatory methods and the inputs going that into something what we call this agent-based modeling. So most of the inputs, the questions we ask, the issues from the model setting itself come from the different communities or different stakeholders there and things. Yeah, next one. I think that's the last slide. Yeah. Now, so there are different methods which you can use in terms of participatory methods for knowledge production and things. So what I would say is that probably all these methods which talk about could be organized, plotted in a continuum. And there I would say that when you prepare this continuum, maybe have 3-4 important things we can plot this against. One is, what is the degree of participation of primary stakeholders? Are they involved right from the problem setting, framing the issue, or where do they participate? Is it only a data collection? Because one of the criticism which I have about, what you call this citizen science, that primarily it is used as a data collection method. Very often the citizens don't get involved in framing the issues or even the analysis and things. Basically, it's a good method of data collection. I think to some of which I think probably Tanvi also highlighted and things. Second issue is that what is the role of experts and formal researchers in the whole thing? Who dominates the entire process? Third, which I have not mentioned, is probably the rigor of the research itself. The rigor, the methodological rigor about the knowledge production itself. And also, lastly, I would say the realize of the transformative potential of the knowledge produced. So I think against these 3-4 things which you can probably plot these things and see what is the relative merits, what we learn from each other, and come up with a much more composite method and things. This is a very tentative proposition which I'm putting forward. I'm not clearly given a very complete thought to it. Probably this is to be further developed and things. Next one. The second issue I think which come up is that the whole question when we talk about participate methods, this is there in the literature, is nothing new which I'm saying, is the power and information asymmetry among the stakeholders. There are, especially in the Indian context, there are historical inequities to some. I think Tanvi, when she said about her positionality, she did mention class, caste, patriarchy, ethnicity, and there are different type of divides in the society, and that also gives you not only power inequities, but the type of resource inequities, information, knowledge, etc., and things. So I think one of the things which we have learned is that unless we also create as part of the research some type of a level playing field, and this is a learning which we have come from the Conflict Forum's own work, as some prelude to the type of research work, then people cannot participate in an equitable manner and things. Next one. And there is also fetish about toolkits. Many of these things talk about toolkits. Now, even for example, in our own research about corporate action, we are also talking about a toolkit. When participatory resource appraisal or rural appraisal came globally and in India, it also had a toolkit, how to do it and things. So it becomes ritualized, routinized, it's done in a mechanical manner and things, and the spirit with which this is gone. So I would say more than toolkit, probably toolkits are useful. I'm not saying it is not. The underlying processes are very important. And very often this type of technical toolkits take a precedence over the processes, which should be much more context specific and things, and need to give emphasis there if you have to use this. And I think the last point I'm making is the last one. I can't see it. Or so the last plea which I will have is that even to come up with all these things, then how do, for me, coming from a activist researcher perspective, and for the knowledge which are produced lead to conflict transformation, lead to more cooperation and more transformations, then I think these constituencies, academics and researchers, need to work together in a much more participatory model. We have many models we can rely on. We need to assess each of these things and take it forward. I think that's where I'll stop. Thanks.